Here you go. Good afternoon. Welcome to another Contagious Smile Teen Talk. I'm stepping in to help Faith with an honor of a lifetime. I just am just in awe of the fact that we have Mr. Scott Hamilton here to have a sit down conversation with Faith. This is actually going to be our 300th episode, which
Wow.
which will be this, and it's going to be the rollout of our Holiday Heroes fundraising that Faith has put on every year except last year because we were in the hospital. But Scott is a celebrated figure skater whose remarkable journey has inspired countless individuals, including you and I. Scott has captured the essence of artistry and athleticism as a champion skater. He mesmerizes his audiences and he has breathtaking performances every single time. I'm sure you'll tell him some of your favorites. He is a four-time world champion, 1984 Olympic gold medalist. He redefined the sport with his innovative routines and his magnetic presence. What truly sets Scott apart is his unwavering spirit and his resilience in the face of adversity. Having battled cancer himself, he became a passionate advocate for cancer awareness and research, embodying hope and determination. Faith's story is so much like Scott's that I just can't wait. She's been so anxiously putting together her questions and so excited. So I'm stepping back now and you two enjoy your talk. Thank you so much again.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming on, Scott.
My pleasure. It's wonderful to meet you, Faith. You're a huge source of inspiration. You are the toughest person I think I've met in a long, long time.
Well, I also think that you're a tough person too, as you've been through a lot as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, we all go through what we need to go through. And it seems kind of weird to say that, especially knowing how much you've endured. But, you know, it's just amazing that this life is going to throw everything it can at us. And it's how we respond to it that allows us to either have any quality in our life whatsoever. You know, I mean, it's just some people can't handle, somebody cutting them off in traffic, or, they look in their refrigerator and they're out of something. And that's just the worst thing that can happen. And others, have to, go into ICU, like, you, and I've been in ICU as well. And it's just, you're fighting for your lives, and your perspective changes when you have to go through things, especially if they're life threatening. You just have a bit of a better appreciation on things than maybe people that haven't had that experience.
That I 100% agree with. So I have some questions for you if you don't mind.
Not at all. I'm wide open for you.
What was it like winning gold medals?
Yeah, that's complicated. I'm happy to walk you through it, because my journey was in skating was I wasn't very good for a long time. And then I figured it out. And, it was when I lost my mom to cancer. I just decided to put my big boy pants on and just grow up and just not be, sort of distracted anymore, and so, she passed away from cancer. And so I stepped into my adult life then and decided to honor her with my skating, and that changed my results quickly. I was 9th in the nation when she saw me skate, and then I was the next year 3rd in the United States and 11th in the world, and then 2 years later I was on the Olympic team, ranked 5th in the world, and then for 4 years I went undefeated. And it was one of those things where you're standing on the podium at the Olympic Games and you're processing everything. It can be one of just pure joy and exhilaration, or you're gonna step up there and you're gonna think, well, what went into this, and who, nobody sacrificed more than my mom, and all the different people. It's just one after another. I just kept thinking about, my dad, who was in the audience, and Mrs. McLarain, who saved my skating career with her sponsorship, and my coach, Don Laws, and how he'd never taken a skater that far before, and my choreographer, Ricky Harris, who was a real character and kept Don calm. But looking off, the podium, looking over the edge, I just felt like I was looking over the edge of a cliff, because when you spend your whole life doing something and it leads to something, whether it leads to failure, or whether it leads to mediocrity, or whether it leads to an Olympic gold medal or whatever, that now that journey is over, and now what do? It's like, what's next? And so I felt happy, I felt relieved, I felt sad that my mom couldn't be there to see it. I felt grateful for all the people that poured into me for that moment. And I just felt like, I got to share something with my country, and I got to hear the anthem and see the flag go up and all those wonderful moments. But I knew that all of it was meant not for just that, but for something else. And then stepping into the next parts of my life were really amazing, because the Olympics changed the course of what my life would have been had I not been in that competition.
I saw you lost your mom.
Oh, you're kind. Thank you. Yeah. She was a great lady. She was loved in our community, and she was the most compassionate, sacrificial mom I think I've met until I met your mom. And and she just made sure that I had everything I needed to be successful, and without ever buying herself clothes or doing anything for herself. And she was just a great lady, and I think of her every day, and I love when I get to talk about her. So thank you for that.
What got you to choose ice cream in the first place?
Well, I was very sick as a child. I think you can relate to that. And I was in hospitals, in and out, mostly in for like 4 years, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I wasn't digesting food, I wasn't developing, I wasn't growing. And so they, I go from one hospital to the next, to the next, to the next, just trying to find the right person. And I ended up at Boston Children's Hospital. And it was there that I met a doctor named Dr. Harry Schwachman. And I had every symptom of a disease called Shwachman-Diamond syndrome. And so I was there with him like for months, maybe a whole year. And he just couldn't figure out what was wrong. He knew there was something happening, but he proved that it wasn't Shwachman-Diamond syndrome. It's a celiac disease. But he couldn't figure out what was causing it. So they sent me home with the advice of just live a normal life and see if I outgrow this thing, or see if I can rise above it in some way. And so going home after a 4-year journey, my parents were shattered and exhausted. And so our family doctor came and had a one-man intervention and told my mom and dad they needed to have a morning off every week where they could just recharge their batteries and just be normal, be a normal family without, worrying about hospital visits and all the other medical bills. And it was financially, physically, mentally, emotionally exhausting for them. And so to give them a morning off, my sister and our doctor's daughters all went they took me to the skating rink. And once I got on the ice, I realized that I was on equal footing with all the well kids and all the kids that were bigger and stronger than me in my class. And it was after a few weeks I realized that I could skate as well as the well kids. And it was after a few weeks more that I realized I could skate as well as the best athletes in my grade. And for the first time ever, I had just that gust of wind that was self-esteem. And I just wanted to be a rink rat. I didn't want to be anywhere else but the rink. So I just, my parents would have to threaten me to get me off the ice, and I just skated every day, and I just couldn't wait to be on the ice, because it was finally I found something that I could do as well as the well kids.
Why do you think your cancer was a gift?
I'm sorry?
Why do you believe that your cancer was a gift?
Oh, that's a good question. It's just those forks in the road that you have to, you got to figure out which way you're going to go, right? And I went from being very unsuccessful in skating to being very successful in skating. And then I started a professional career And I wasn't really equipped for, like I've heard it said in my Bible study. It's really funny. We were talking last year, and one of the gentlemen, we were reading about how these different kings and different people went, it's like you look at Solomon, who God gifted with incredible wisdom and discernment. And he said, because you asked for that, I'm going to give you everything else. And so the quickest way to see the darkest part of your character is to give someone fame and or money. And I had all this, what it's worth. I mean, I don't know if famous, I was I familiar maybe, but for me it was I just started only caring about the next opportunity, and I just wanted to, my parents had to worry about finances, and I never wanted to have to worry about finances. And so I just worked really hard, and I just tried to accumulate as much as I could, and the next opportunity, and the next opportunity, the next opportunity. And I realized, I was in my 13th professional season, that when I couldn't stand up straight anymore, I think I had a problem. And so I went to an emergency room, and they said they found a mass. I didn't know what that was. And they said it's either benign, malignant, or something else. And I knew what that was. And it was about 2 months shy of my mother's anniversary of losing her to cancer. And I realized I'm being diagnosed with the same disease. And the fear was unbelievable. But it was in that I was so terrified that I was just going to suffer, diminish, and die, and I'd never skate again. I'd never skate again. Why was that even in my thought process? But I don't even know how long it took, whether it was a minute or a nanosecond. I have no idea. But that fear and that dread turned into a posture of, I need to be strong, and I need to be the best patient that they've ever had, because I want to be back on tour next year, and I'm going to do everything they tell me to do, and I'm going to be the best patient ever so I could be on tour in the next year. And sure enough, it was it was one of those things where I knew I was being moved. It wasn't like it was a bad thing. It was like, no, I needed your full and undivided attention. And that's one way to get it, is to, now I have cancer. Okay, Lord, you have my full undivided attention. What do you want me to do? And basically in that, I didn't realize at the time that it was a faith thing, but it was really a faith thing, because I felt the overwhelming urge to just leave where I was and just chart a new path, because I didn't like the way that my life had become all about feeding the master, which was, being in front of audiences and the financial part of it. I realized I was letting the tail wag the dog, and I just didn't want that. I wanted to be the dog, and I wanted to wag my own tail. So I just sort of stepped away from what I was doing, but I worked to get back on the tour the next year. And I realized that I didn't feel like I was right for anyone or anything. I just felt like I was out of sync with the rest of the world, and I needed to figure that out. So I call it my adventure. A lot of people would call it a wilderness period, but I just changed everything. And in that, I left myself open for massive change. And I, on the third anniversary night, the night of my third anniversary of my diagnosis, I met my wife. And I didn't think I was open to that. I thought I was pretty closed off to building a relationship. But when I met her, I didn't think, of anything more than, oh, wow, my heart just jumped a little bit. I don't know what that means. I guess maybe it means I'm supposed to get off the bench and start maybe looking for a relationship. But, I wasn't interested really in a relationship for those 3 years. And then a few months later, I find out that she was moving to close to where I was living. And I said to my friend. I go, can I get her number? And then we went out on our first date, and we've been together ever since. And we have 4 children, and we're living in Nashville now. And all of that came from a cancer diagnosis that rerouted my thinking, rerouted the way I wanted to live my life. And I'm so grateful for it, because I wouldn't have the children I have without that diagnosis. I wouldn't have the life I have right now without it. So I'm really grateful that cancer knocked me down, got my full undivided attention, and just forced me to rethink the way I was living my life. And in that, now I'm happier than I've ever been.
How come you were not, when you were in the hospital, you wanted to do like a kid?
That's a good question.
One more time, I'm sorry.
She's talking about when you were 38 years old and you wouldn't let anybody in the room that wasn't going to make you laugh.
That. Yeah. Well, I kind of figured out that there was something about this journey that I wanted it. I didn't want it to be a sad one. I didn't want it to be one where I thought about being sick all the time. I wanted to change the way I wanted to create an atmosphere where when I look back on that time, I could look back on it joyfully. So no one was allowed in my room unless they made me laugh. And it was really funny that my nurse, she treated me like an 8-year-old. She would decorate my chemo bags with Snoopy stickers or with Mylar. My Band-Aids were always SpongeBob or Scooby-Doo, and she treated me like an 8-year-old patient. And if I was really good that day, there was a banana popsicle waiting for me in the nurse's freezer. So it was really a fun time, and people would bring me funny movies, or they'd come in wearing those glasses with the big nose and the mustache, or they'd come in wearing skinhead wigs, and everybody had a joke. And it was, I'm able to look back on that now and remember it in that way. And I think where that came from was when my mom was going through chemo. She would, when she when she shared the news with us that she had cancer, she was very joyful about it. She was like, "Hey, everybody, I just came from the doctor," and she was just like smiling and happy. And I think she did that so we wouldn't be scared or we wouldn't be upset. And I remember when she was going through chemo, she would say things like, "Oh, this chemotherapy is so great. I finally found a way to lose all this weight." Or she would say, "Oh, this chemotherapy is wonderful. I've wanted to quit smoking all these years. Now I have no desire." And then she'd say, "Oh, this chemo is awesome. My hair has always been so difficult and unattractive. These wigs are so beautiful and they're so easy." And so she just found the best way to go through it. And I wanted to be like that. So, people picked up on it right away. And I look back on that journey as something that wasn't all bad, and there was a lot of laughter in it. And I don't look back on it with dread. I look back on it like it was really important. But I loved how people just jumped on board and just wanted to make me laugh.
Well, your mom kind of like my mom.
Yeah, she does, doesn't she? Yeah.
How come when it's skating, you get a little dancing and all that?
Oh, the backflip?
No, not a laugh, but like when it's meant to laugh and all that.
Oh, you start making everybody laugh, and she in the routine walk this way.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, Scott, how many times that was just an auto replay. I constantly replay because she loved it when you did the walk and
Yeah, that was fun. So when I was growing up, when I was in my loser days, there was a guy that I skated with every day named Gordy McKellen, and he was the best show skater I've ever seen. He would bring the house down. It didn't matter if he was doing comedic skating or something really dramatic. He would have the audience in the palm of his hand. And it was like, I want to do that. But I don't want to do it like he did. I want to do it like I want to do it, right? So, but he gave me the confidence to know that you can do funny things on the ice. You can do meaningful things on the ice. You can do, and I remember early on, I went from the Olympics into professional skating, and I would do what was expected of me, right? And I was in the ice capades, and it was a big machine. And I remember it was after my first No, it was after my second year with Ice Capades, and I'd just been let go. They said that they only wanted female stars. The new owner only wanted female stars, so they let me go. So I was kind of like, what am I going to do? So I went out to, I rented a house in Los Angeles, and there was a choreographer out there named Sarah Kawahara, and she and I met, and I just said, I'm having a little cookout with some friends of mine that lived in LA, and I go, do you want to come over? And she said, yes, I'd love to come over. So she came over, and we're having this big barbecue, and she just looked at me and she said, it's time for you to turn professional. And I said, well, I've just been 2 years professional. I don't understand. She goes, no. You need to become a professional entertainer athlete. And I was like, oh, it's different. And she goes, it's much different. And so she basically came out and said, you can skate like you're pretending like you're back in the Olympics, or you can develop and grow something brand new. And I remembered I'd always look out the curtain, before a show, and I'd want to see who was in the audience. And I'd always see these men sitting in the front row, and they'd be like checking their watches, and they'd be like, oh, what am I doing here? I'm really taking one for the team here. And it's like, I just hope none of my friends are here and see me, because I still, and so they didn't really want to be at an ice show. And I thought, if I can get that guy on his feet, if I can earn a standing ovation from that guy, I could probably skate forever. I could skate for as long as I wanted, because there's an underserved part of the audience that really needs to be served. So I would come up with ideas that were meant to be unique and really broadly entertaining, and the backflip was a big part of that. I really wanted to be able to do backflip because it was kind of one of those show-stopping moves, and I just wanted to do performances that A, I like the music because I'm going to have to listen to it 1,000 times, and B, I wanted it to be a little different, like a little bit like no one else had done anything like this up to that point. And so we'd come up with these crazy ideas, and I brought Sarah, my choreographer, Sarah Kawahara, I brought her Walk This Way, and she goes, man, you're a rocker. I go, yeah, I love rock and roll music. I've always loved rock music. And she goes, I'll listen to it. And I was like really nervous that she wouldn't like it, because she's more into, at that time, she was more into growing me in really unique sort of avant-garde ways and very esoteric kind of cool skating and very arty. And she listened to it, and she called me and she goes, you know what, I actually love it. Let's do it. And I said, okay. And so she came up with all these, we would usually start choreographing at midnight, and then we'd end about 3 a.m, because that's where we could get our ice time for free, and nobody else was on it, so we could really focus. And so I remember we just started coming up with all these crazy walks. It's like, what another one? We can do a Charlie Chaplin walk. Oh yeah. What else? We can do like a monkey walk. Oh yeah, that'd be great. We can do like a Mick Jagger walk. We can do like, I don't know. We came up with all these like crazy walks, and it just fit. And I remember we did it in a dress. I did it in a dress rehearsal. We'd always open the show in Lake Placid, and I did the dress rehearsal, and there was enough difficulty in that program stepwise that I was really struggling with it. And I just was thinking so much I just was oppressed with the difficulty of that program, like how the jumps were set up, and that I blew up in the dress rehearsal, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this in the show. I don't think it's going to go over. I think it's just, something that I like. And the director of the show said, well, it's in the show, you're going to have to do it. So let's go. And I go, oh. So I did it the first night in Lake Placid, and it went over gangbusters. And I said, I'm going to wear this thing out. I'm going to do this program everywhere I possibly can. And then all these other program ideas came. We did like this Lounge Lizard. We did Cuban Pete. We did ballet comedy and opera comedy. We weren't afraid to take on anything. And we did Hair, and I did Wizard of Oz. And we just take on these crazy ideas. And then I had a costume designer named Jeff Billings who would come up with costumes that were like very multifunctional. And so all of our performances were more than just going out and just doing jumps and spins. They were character pieces. They were meant to, it's just really broad. I mean, I did everything from like a ballet comedy to a ballad, called I Have Nothing. And then I did Hair, and I did Walk This Way, and then I did Cuban Pete, and then I would do another performance, Only One Life. And then I did, oh my goodness, there was like Sarah and I, when I counted all the programs we did together, it was like 60 something programs that we did together over the years. And it was remarkable just that, every year she would make me a little better than I was the year before. And we'd always have to come up with an idea that was just so fun and cool and interesting that it just every year I'd have to find a way to up my game. So all those performances came out of the idea that A, I wanted to win over the men. B, I wanted to get a standing ovation every night. I don't know, it's ego, right? But it's also kind of the litmus test. If I did okay, I'm going to get people on their feet. And that was my goal every single year. And because of that, I was able to skate professionally for 20 years.
All the ones who good, which one was your favorite?
What is your all-time favorite of your routines?
Oh man, it's like asking me what's my favorite child. It's the one in the room. I love doing Walk This Way. I really loved it, and it got me through some big moments. I skated In the Mood. That was always a blast to do. It was really fun. It was really intricate, and it was fast. It was just end to end. It was really hard. I love doing Hair because the costume was just. I started off as a hippie, and I ended up as a businessman. I loved Wizard of Oz. Was a blast every single night. It was just too long. It was like a 6 minute and 20 second program, and I would die every night. And there was another, what was the other one I loved doing? It was just every night would be really challenging and really fun. And everything was meant by, with Sarah to make me a little better this year than I was the year before, so that I could take on even more that year after that. It was always fun.
We really loved, besides Walk This Way, constantly on replay was the routine that you did with the golf bag.
Oh yeah, Double Bogey Blues.
Yes, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
We watched Hair. She also loved the one where you came out like all dressed in tights, and you're like, I just want to look pretty. she would just
But the whole song.
Right. But yes, absolutely. And she would tell the doctors and nurses, you have to wait, I'm watching. And we had a respiratory therapist who had no sense of humor. We couldn't ever get him to smile or talk or do anything. And then he knew she was watching it. I had a little portable speaker, and we had Walk This Way on, and she was watching it on the phone, and he came in and he started dancing and singing to Walk This Way. The whole staff was just dumbfounded because this guy never showed emotion, and then he came in and wow. it was amazing.
That's so fun. Yeah, it was a huge adventure, and like it got to be like a lot of pressure to kind of try to come up with another idea and another idea. But I got to a point where I was really just okay with stepping away from skating. It was right after my son was born. And I just didn't want to miss a day. I figured 20 years and I'm now a father, and I just want to see his first steps and hear his first words. And I worked really hard for that. And so I figured I'm going to give myself that. I'm not going to worry about, going out on another, 72 city tour or trying to figure out a way to, it wasn't about me anymore. It was about him. And so now he's an athlete, he's training really hard. He's now 21 years old and he wants to be a fighter. So
good for him. And you have a redhead too, like I do.
Yeah, I got a redhead. I noticed you're a redhead. Yeah, my redhead. He's in ministry and he's an entrepreneur. And he's 16. And he's 16 and everybody thinks he's in his 20s. It's hilarious.
You have 4 beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, my daughter just she's at college and my wife's out there visiting her right now, and my son, they're both in LA. And my other older son is in the Air Force. So really proud of him as well.
That's amazing. You guys have a lot in common. Her birthday is 20 days before yours.
Oh, you're an 8/8?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, 8/8. Oh, I'm all about eights.
That's my favorite number.
Yeah, my favorite number. And I have so many times when an 8 would show up that would just let me know that Lord was letting me know I'm here and you're going to be okay. And it was always about eights. It was always about eights. And yeah, that's awesome. That's such a great birthday.
It is. And you both are published authors.
Nice. Congratulations on that. Books are hard.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, books are hard.
I have to tell you, she wrote the most beautiful book, and she's written 5. And so after this long hospitalization this last time, she wrote one thanking the surgeons for bringing her faith back to life about doctors, because she had given up on all of them. She didn't believe in them anymore. And she wrote this book, and she read it to the 2 surgeons, and then she read it to me because she asked me to help her with it. And then part of it that just blew my mind was she was in a medically induced coma. And in it, she says to me, Mom, I just want you to like not get mom-like. Don't be like mom, because I know what you're going to do. And in it said how even though she was in this medically induced coma, she remembers me singing to her.
Oh, wow.
And
I hear stories about that. It's amazing. That's so miraculous.
And she said my tears as I cried over her brought her back to life. And this beautiful girl has just been my inspiration and everything. And she's what gives me strength. And I always say to her, my greatest honor is what?
Being my mom.
Being your mom. And she came up with an acronym, and she has never shared it with anyone, but she wanted to share it and give you the title. Do you want to tell them what it was?
Brave. It was a resilient, knowledge, liquid, and brave colorless.
Brave. Be resistant, acknowledge victories, and embrace your challenge.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Yeah, I heard it say one time that courage was fear that said its prayers. And
I love that.
Yeah, and it's so true because, we think about courage, and where does courage come from? It's rooted in fear. I mean, you have to start somewhere. I mean, if there was no reason to be fearful, then courage would not exist. So they have to work together. And it's the same with joy. Joy isn't just being happy all the time. Joy is, my wife said something one time, and I've never forgotten it. Whenever I go in for a scan, I always say, no matter what I get today, I'm gonna receive it joyfully. It's all gonna be joy, and because that's what my mom did, right? So she was doing an interview one time, and they said, "What's all this joy stuff? I mean, I don't get it. How can you receive that news joyfully?" And she just, without skipping a beat, she said, "No. Joy isn't the lack of fear and suffering. It's how you go through it." And I just thought, that's why she gets me. She just gets me. And I love that about her. She just understands things from sort of like a bigger point of view. And it really is remarkable that in this life, we're going to struggle. We're going to have trouble. It's like John 16:33, says, in this world, you will have trouble, but take heart. I've overcome the world. And that's Jesus. And it's like, okay, I'm going to stay as close as I can to him, because he's the boss, and if he can do it, he tells us we can do it too. So that's where I'm rooting everything in that, and I'm just really grateful that my wife really allowed me to connect the dots and allowed me to understand my faith in the gospel, and it's all true and it's all there, and this life is hard, but whatever we endure in this life, we're promised almost an opposite experience in the next. And it's beautiful. And the more I study scripture, the more I understand that, this is the tough one. The next one is magnificent. This one's hard. The next one, the next one's going to be magnificent. So I don't fear much these days.
I don't,
yeah.
What do you tell everybody? That you dance with the Reaper?
Yeah, I dance with the Reaper more times than I can count.
Yes, more times than you can count, but you never gave up. No, never. So tell us about your foundation that you created.
Oh, CARES? Yeah, that well, when my mom died, I became a fundraiser. And then when I went through cancer, I started to see things that I didn't anticipate. I didn't know what it was going to feel like to go through it. So I didn't know what chemo was. I thought, we're going to put me in a room and replace all my bodily fluids. And it's like, no, it's a bag of chemicals that they put into an IV drip. And it's like, oh, I can do that. And then I didn't know what it was going to feel like to go through it. So I'd asked my doctor, who I adore, and he said, I said, how sick am I going to be? And he said, moderate to severe. And I go, what does that look like? And he said, moderate to severe. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, note to self. And so then I went on Dr. Google, like everybody goes on Dr. Google to try to figure out how to rise above their circumstance. And I realized that all the papers written about my cancer were medical journal papers, and they were all with 12-syllable words. And I thought it was really unfair that I was too done to be sick. Note to self. And then I always said if I could find a way to fund a research program that leads to a treatment that would have saved my mom's life, I would have known when I was born. And so as part of the CARES, and CARES is an acronym, it's the Cancer Alliance for Research, Education, and Survivorship. So the whole how sick am I going to be, moderate to severe, I said, I need to talk to a survivor. And so we created a mentorship program where we paired newly diagnosed patients with survivors, and they work as sort of cancer coaches. So it's like, here's what I felt, here's what's coming next, and they can give somebody information that they have that they felt that they've experienced where doctors have only witnessed it, right? So then there's like tech. So Fourth Angel still exists, and they're pairing 100 people a month, caregivers and also pediatric caregivers. And then the other part was Dr. Google, and I figured there's no place I can find out what's going on with me. So we created a website called chemocare.com, and it's everything you need about chemo, how it's administered, every drug, how it works, listed, everything, all the side effects, how to manage those, all in 8th grade English and Spanish with Google Translate in any language in the world. So we launched that as a way for people to be able to step into their chemotherapy experience with user-friendly information they could actually understand and apply to their journey. And now we're all about research to replace chemo with something that ignites an immune response in your body. And so that's all we've ever funded. And it was really wild that we funded a research program in immunotherapy for my mom's cancer 3 years ago. And on the night of my 40th anniversary of my Olympic gold medal, we announced that it's going into clinical trial. So it's miraculous. It's just incredible that, you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and amazing things can happen.
Absolutely.
So one thing I have a comment is that our lives have been a roller coaster.
Yes, y'all have had a roller coaster.
It is a roller coaster, isn't it? Yeah, it is. And, there was a scene in a movie, Parenthood, where Mary Steenburgen's mother's in the kitchen. She's the grandma, and she's very old. And everything was chaos. And she said, lots of people go to the fair and they like the merry-go-round, but I like the roller coaster. And then she explained the ups and the downs, and you're never sure what's going to happen next. And it could be a turn, it could be in the dark, you could be like, all these things happen in the roller coaster. And I just find it so exciting. And Steve Martin looks at her and goes, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But I did, and you do. It's, a roller coaster. There are days where and I'm sure you feel the same way too, that you just like things to be normal and easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, we're given what we're given. in order to allow us to become the people that we are meant to become. And I've never seen growth happen in a way that was simple or easy. It always comes out of, I'm so much better off now that I've been through, the cancer and the chemo and the 3 brain tumors. And I'm more alive now than I've ever been. And it's because I respect it more. And so, yeah, I don't ever want to wish anything on anybody, but if they're going through it, do it right, where you experience everything and you're able to understand that you're much stronger than you ever thought you could be. And I think you're an example of that.
Who is your hero?
Who's my hero? Well, right now you are.
Aww.
Because, again, what you're doing is remarkable. You're sharing your journey and you're stepping out in front of people and you're showing that, yeah, this is hard. Life is, this life has handed me a lot of really difficult things, but, there's joy in the morning, and I'm here to talk about it and share it and almost in a really odd way celebrate it. It's a strange thing to say, but it's also, every day we're here is a day that gives opportunity to bring someone joy. And I've got in my office, I'll point it up there, you can see it. It's right underneath. It's right there. It is a hourglass, and I got it at a cancer event called Buying Time. And I look at that hourglass every day and I just say, what do I want more than anything in the world? Sand. Just give me sand. That's all I want, And even if it's tough, I just want sand, more sand.
My husband just came over and he's...
Hey there!
Hi, Scott.
How are you?
I'm exhausted, buddy.
I always tell my coach would always tell me that is something you earned.
Well, you've met these 2 lovely young ladies.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing this, Scott.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great to see you. Nice
they
to
have
meet you.
Done nothing but pick you up and boast about you and talk about you. They're just all smiles and giggles.
Oh man, I'm so
Couldn't wait
honored.
to do this.
Thank you. Yeah.
So Faith is about to roll out her annual Holiday Heroes event. She started this at 4. She had her sitting with Santa, and she would sign because she just was decannulated from having a tracheostomy. And
I'm gonna find out. I'm gonna put most of it.
Yeah, it's been a long time since. And she wanted to bring other kids like herself, she said, on Christmas, because everybody brings stuff to the hospital, but people don't come to the long-term care facilities and other places that are quite often forgotten. And so we started fundraising, and this kid every year has raised like toys and money, and she's never once asked for anything out of it herself. We go and distribute, we get like a train of therapists and doctors, and they get the wagons, and we go and take it. And if somebody's in the bed and their sibling is there, she would say, "I'm really sorry. I've had a lot of seizures and coding. I don't have a good memory, but your brother, if that was a boy in the bed, wanted to give you a gift, and I don't remember what he wanted, so come pick out whatever you want." And she would give it to the siblings and say it was from the patient. And she would sit there with the kids and play and draw with them and talk with them. And during COVID, she raised money, and then she went and I'm going to get turned up. She went and talked to one of the domestic violence homes that we work with, and used that money and bought everybody dinner. Had a cookie company bring over dessert so that they could decorate the cookies as a family. We had gifts brought to them, but this kid is so selfless. Like she never wants anything for herself. All she ever wants to do is that's how we got a contagious smile because every smile tells a story. And this kid is resilient, and she is just a light to be reckoned with, to say the least.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Well, send me a link. You got my email. Send me a link on that. I'd love to look at it.
Absolutely. We would love that. And we would love to do anything we can to help you with your organization.
Thank you. What part of the world are you in?
We are not far from you. We're in Georgia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's easy. It's like, I mean, door to door for me, it's like 3.5 hours to Atlanta. Well, it's about 2 hours and 45 minutes to Atlanta, and then like 45 minutes to get into Atlanta.
Yeah. That is true.
Traffic.
That is very, very,
yeah,
very
I
true.
love Georgia's. I mean, did you get hit by the hurricane stuff?
Just some really bad storms. Yeah, just some bad storms.
Yeah, my wife and I kind of leaning towards retirement. You know, it's like Florida, right? So there's a joke that Florida is where old people go to visit their parents. You know, so it's like so we just got a place in Florida on Siesta Key.
I've never heard of it.
Well, that was where Milton hit.
Oh,
direct
no.
shot. Yeah.
Is
amazing.
Your mom okay?
Well, my wife and I were on our knees praying. We just prayed for a hedge of protection because they were supposed to get a 14-foot storm surge, and that would have knocked out my oldest, dearest friend's condo. Like it would have put it underwater, and he would have lost everything. And so we just got on our knees and we just prayed that it was just protection around Siesta Key, and it hadn't been hit directly like that for I don't know 100 years. And the storm surge started and stopped.
Wow.
Yeah, and they didn't get any storm surge at all. And they were expecting like 8 to 14 feet. It was a miracle. And I know it was the Lord because nothing could have stopped that from happening except for him. Yeah. And so prayers get answered, you know.
Absolutely.
But, you know, if it's his will, he'll answer those. But so, yeah, we felt so bad for the families in Asheville, North Carolina, and even parts of Eastern Tennessee that just got destroyed. It's just amazing. That rain can be so destructive, and all the flooding and everything else. It's just awful. I just feel so bad for families that have been devastated.
So, do you have anything you want to say in closing, Miss Faith?
So I'm so glad that the flowers went out there. That's a lot of things that I have.
That he understands. And dynamite comes in small packages because he actually said once when I watched the interview that he believed he healed so quickly because he was shorter and smaller, and she is the same way.
5'2".
Yeah, she's 5'2", and
then perfect. Yeah, I was 5'3.5", and then I went through chemo, and I came out of it, and I was 5'4", and now I'm back to like 5'3.5". Because I think I was laying down so much that everything just relaxed and I got taller for a minute. But yeah, it's like when we're built close to the ground, it's just life's easier. I got on a plane, American Airlines, I think the other day, might have been Delta, and I realized that the seats are like this far apart, and I barely fit in there. I don't know how a normal sized person even fits in there. So it's like I like being small, especially when I travel, because pretty much every seat is a first class seat for me. I don't have to worry about it. But for everybody else, they're listening to their knees because they're like this. They're just so miserable. But yeah, stay small.
There you
it
go.
rocks.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, thank you for coming on to the podcast.
She said, thank you so much for coming on and being your 300th episode.
Yay! Woo! That is so awesome. Well, you just keep fighting the fight and live beautifully and joyfully every single day, and just keep inspiring people, because your story and your endurance and resilience, and I mean you're miraculous. You're here for a reason, and you're here to touch people's lives and inspire them and allow them to have perspective and look at themselves and say, I can be strong like you, and more people need to be strong like you. And I need to be strong like you, because, with stuff that I've experienced, it's, you can't go into them, sort of, you don't back into them, you go into them full force, and just say, bring it, let's go. I know I got to do something. Let's go. We're going this way. And you're just a living testament for strength and resilience and beauty and just awesome. So I'm just honored to have had this time with you. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm glad that you guys have been on here and talked with us.